Hi there, my name is Muhammad, and I'm the host of the Reconfigured podcast, a show that explores the intersection of technology, culture, and society. We bring professionals to talk about their extended experience or discuss about a specific topic that might interest the audience. All of our episodes are available for free with no cost to the general public. So, welcome to the show. Today I'm with Chris. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Muhammad, for inviting me to be part of this show. My name is Christophe Zoghbi. My background is in software engineering, but I'm mostly known for founding Beirut AI and also Zaka. And I'm involved in the AI field for the last maybe 10 years. I can talk more about Beirut AI and Zaka maybe later, but that's a quick introduction.
Okay. As the founder of Zaka and AI and Beirut AI, can you share your journey into the world of AI and what inspired you to start Beirut AI and Zaka?
So technically, that's linked to my personal story. So as I said, I have a background in software engineering. I graduated from university as a software engineer. I worked a couple of years as a mobile app developer, specifically working on Android apps. After that, I quit my job to pursue my first startup with my friends, and this is where I actually got introduced to AI and machine learning because we were building a product that required some, let's say, smart capabilities, which turned out to be what we call machine learning. So I had no idea what AI was and how to get started in that field. So I did what any software engineer would do, just go on Google, research, and try to understand the topic. So I went down this rabbit hole of data science and algorithms and all of these AI related topics. And it wasn't really easy because back in 2014, there wasn't, let's say, tools or websites like Udemy, like Coursera, like deep learning.ai, all of these resources to learn about the field. So it took me quite some time to actually wrap my head around that. Um, and then after like 3 years later, after I became knowledgeable in AI and pretty much fell in love with the field, the startup did not really make it, but my passion for AI has kind of remained. And I was kind of looking around in Lebanon, who else is doing AI? Who else is working in these cool technologies? And I barely, found a couple of people who actually heard of AI. So I wanted to have more like a community around the AI field in Lebanon, like a meetup where we can discuss topics, bring people, share knowledge, things like that. So I founded Beirut AI in 2017 with the goal of just bringing people together, raise awareness about AI, share lessons learned, help each other out. And it quickly grew, to become the biggest applied AI community in Lebanon. Um, we organized different events. We started with doing these meetups, then we moved on to workshops, hackathons, different types of events. And the reason I'm telling the whole story is because it's all linked. So during my time at Beirut AI, which was my volunteering time and effort, I realized that there is a big need for education. I realized that people are interested to learn about not just high level, but how to practically they can apply AI to learn the skills they need to learn and the frameworks, the tools, all of those things. And no one else was providing this, right? So universities were not preparing these graduates for the job market, and no one else had any clue practically how to apply AI. So I found that there's a need for this education, and at the same time, I wanted this to be my full-time job in a way. So I wanted to be able to sustain myself and work in that instead of just volunteer my time because the mission required more than just a couple of workshops per quarter. So that's how Zaka got was born. So we founded Zaka to be a consultancy and education company, mainly focusing on the MENA region, not just on Lebanon. And the idea was to, bring these educational programs to companies, to individuals, to help them understand and apply artificial intelligence. So that's why I always say that Zaka is a community-driven company because we started through a community, and we always keep that community at our heart. So yeah, so that's basically the story of how I transitioned from becoming an AI engineer to actually an AI educator, and raising awareness and sharing knowledge about artificial intelligence.
So you decided at the end that I found a gap and I want to fill this gap that I don't seem to find. But this gap wasn't just found in Lebanon, but actually in the MENA region.
Absolutely. Yes. It's actually found worldwide, as I'm realizing with more time. But our focus is on the MENA region because no one else is doing that, and we want to build that local talent pool because this is something that's very important, especially in the region. We're more used to adopting technology instead of implementing or creating technology, right? So we are great at finding a solution and working with it, but we don't have people who are actually building solutions for our problems, right? So that's why you need local talent to solve local problems. That's something I always say. So hopefully with educational programs that you are doing and the talent that you are graduating, eventually you'll have a talent pool in the region that is speaking the language and solving the region's problems and not relying on foreign companies to solve our problems.
When you want to teach about AI, there's a lot of things to be considered, especially with the rapid change in the AI space, because it rapidly changed. AI that was in 2017, it's not like right now, and wasn't even a month ago. What are the biggest challenges you faced in educating individuals and companies about AI, and how would you address them?
So, of course, there are many challenges, right? If you asked me this question 2 years ago, there wasn't a lot of interest in AI unless you were someone who's technical, unless you were someone who is a developer or coming from a technical background. You might have some interest to learn about AI, but everyone else uh, could not even care about AI. But this changed with the release of ChatGPT, right? So ever since November 2022, uh, people have started to realize that AI is actually like it's not science fiction. It's something that they can use. It's an app that they can download and chat and use it in their daily lives. And this has sparked their interest, right? It has really pushed them to see that, okay, I need to figure out, I need to understand this AI thing. I need to leverage it. Otherwise, I'm kind of missing out, right? There's this wave. So this kind of has helped fix one of the challenges, which is the lack of interest, or maybe not realizing that it's an important technology that you have to understand. The other challenge has been maybe these misconceptions that people have around AI. So if like when I first started back in 2018, let's say, when I reached out to companies to say, let's work on an AI solution or let's build something, for them AI was Terminator or robotics and completely science fiction, right? No one understood that AI is actually, it's not science fiction, it's algorithms, it's data, it's leveraging these a certain pattern to predict. So the misconceptions are actually another challenge that we have to always start by saying AI is not robotics. AI is actually about data and algorithms. Next part is data, right? That's the biggest challenge we have. So even when a company is interested and willing to start implementing AI, the next step would be, okay, do you have data? And this is where actually they have no idea what to do with that, right? So we don't have a data culture in Lebanon and mostly in the region as well. And this is super important for any AI project. So you have to start by educating them on the value of data, on how important that is to have, collect data, to store it in a way, and to eventually start leveraging it with AI or machine learning algorithms. Yeah, I believe like these are some of the challenges that we face in the education. Now, of course, you mentioned something important, which is the pace at which the field is moving. That's a challenge that we are still facing up until today, right? So, like, we did a we have a master class on ChatGPT that we released in April of 2023, right? So, like 5, 6 months after ChatGPT was released, we had a master class that covered basically everything you need to know to master this tool. And we used to host this masterclass like once a month at least. And literally every month we had to update the content because there are new things that are being released and things are changing and the slides were becoming outdated. And even the screenshots we took of ChatGPT, like the interface itself changed so much, right? So it's still up until today. Every time I have to give a ChatGPT training, I have to go through the slides and make some adjustments because, again, new features are being released, new capabilities are being, put out there. There was a time where they stopped, let's say, the feature, which was the web browsing, the plugin. They stopped it for like 3-4 weeks, and I remember like I had two trainings. On consequent days. So like Thursday, Friday. So on Thursday, I delivered the training with that feature. On Friday morning, I woke up, I read a tweet that OpenAI is stopping the web browsing plugin because they found that people are bypassing the paywalls for some websites. And so literally during that day, I was like, okay, I'm sorry guys. Yesterday it was working. Today we no longer have this option. Let's try something else. So it's literally that. This is the amount of changes that are taking place, and it's just for one tool, which is ChatGPT. Now imagine we recently launched another course called the AI Personal Toolkits, and the point of that course is to cover all the AI tools that anyone would need to use, because there's plenty of AI tools out there. So we try to kind of gather the best tools for different use cases, and we put them in an extensive 24-hour course. So imagine the same thing, applying it on like 20 tools, 24 tools. It's a headache keeping up with the pace of change. So that's definitely one of the challenges that we keep on having even to this day.
With the rise of those AI applications and people start seeing them as tools and not some Terminator thing that was going to destroy them later on, what are the most significant ways AI is impacting society and culture, which is in the workforce, day to day life, and much more, and its impact on the Middle East? So there are the presence of these tools, but now how people in the Middle East are being impacted on them. So mostly people, let's say in the Middle East, will use ChatGPT, or they will use, let's say, like GitHub Copilot to get things done with coding. But did it improve things inside of the Middle East, or what has it reached towards?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't say it's purely for the Middle East. I think the same thing is happening everywhere in the world, which is that, again, companies are realizing that AI is here to stay and AI is something that they can leverage, right? Even if you're working in marketing and HR and finance and legal, even if you're not into the IT department, you can still use AI to advance your company. So what I've noticed personally is that from, the launch of ChatGPT, literally companies are now reaching out to us and demanding, hey, I want to understand about AI, right? Which is like the same companies we used to reach out to, and they said, okay, we're not interested. Now they are coming back and say, yeah, we are interested in AI. How can we adopt it? How can we scale our employees? Which tools can we use? Things like that. So I think, again, it's this shift from thinking about AI as the science fiction, futuristic, Terminator style, and to actually, it's a tool. It's something we have to leverage. Otherwise, we are left behind. We are missing out. So this shift is basically allowing companies to slowly adopt these tools and obviously become more efficient, become more productive. Um, because you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot compete if you're not actually using these tools. Maybe not right now, but in the very near future, companies will be able to do much more with fewer resources. They're going to be more productive and efficient and creative and, adaptive as well. So if you're still a company that you're not using these tools, then definitely competitors will catch up and will bypass you on that. So this is the shift that I'm seeing. And I would say it's in the MENA region, but it's also globally, right? It's not, there's no difference whether it's here or there. Um, because maybe slightly the Arabic language is still not quite as supported as the other languages, but it's not a deal breaker. And a lot of people in the MENA region use English as well. So again, it's not affecting them that much. But yeah, that's the shift that's happening right now.
I used to see in like 2017 and 18, people were pitching AI as a buzzword for investors. It's like I amaze an investor, I come up and create this and I say, powered by AI. And it was like a buzzword to get investing for a product. Back then, we didn't have those groundbreaking tools. We were seeing that AI today is different in terms like we now have standards. And what would you like to give your input on this? That people in the past used to use, let's say, AI as a buzzword, and now it's being pretty much integrated in every single product out there.
Yeah, I mean that's always the case. There's always this hype around a certain topic that if you just put it in your pitch deck, you're more likely to raise funds. It was AI in 2017, 18, then it shifted to crypto and the metaverse and the NFTs, and now it's generative AI. So I don't really like to follow these trends, right? Like for me, um, you can easily tell if someone is actually adopting AI or someone is just adding AI just to sound like, yeah, we actually do AI. So there's a lot of companies or startups that say, we have this AI powered blah, 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 fill in the blanks, right? Like everything's AI powered, which is, I mean, yes, true. Like AI can be applied to a lot of in a lot of ways, but it doesn't mean that you're an AI company. So if you're just calling an API and integrating, a small feature, but your whole product is about something else, then maybe don't say you're an AI powered whatever it is, right? To actually be an AI company, you have to have the capacity and have the knowledge internally to work with AI, to train models, to develop things, to implement actual features. Um, but nevertheless, that's the reality, right? You have to look at it the way it is, and I think investors can see that, right? Especially people who actually understand technology. They can see that if you're really a company that uses AI, or you're someone who's just adding it to get some attention. And as I said, today it's generative AI, and you can see the huge amount of tools and then startups and companies that come out saying that, yeah, we're an AI tool that does, etc. But exactly what they're doing is this: they're calling OpenAI's API. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but every time OpenAI releases a new feature into ChatGPT, like there's this saying that says like hundreds of startups just died literally because OpenAI literally put them out of business. So if your whole product can be done or can be automated or can be replaced by one feature from ChatGPT or from OpenAI, then you're not really that unique. It's not really a startup, and you shouldn't have, like you should be a bit more focused on creating something that is not easily replaceable by just one update from OpenAI. So that's kind of a struggle right now for startups, and it really shows that, again, you can add these terms to your pitch deck and to your presentation. It doesn't make you an AI company. Um, so yeah, this is my thought on this topic.
I'm going to move to a different question, which is when advising companies or working on projects, how do you approach the decision between building an in house AI solution versus using an external AI service? What are the key considerations that guide this decision? So, for example, as you said, some clients might work out with, let's say, communicating with OpenAI's API, and you say like, okay, do 1 to 3. I would get, let's say, GPT-3 or GPT-4, communicate through the API, and I would get things done. Or I have to build something in house, like I have to rent a server, run something, and then get results.
This is a very good question, and there's no easy answer or like straightforward answer because it depends on a lot of things. So usually there are advantages and disadvantages for every approach, right? For going do it yourself or for just outsourcing it. So some of the advantages, of course, if you want to build it yourself, then you have full flexibility, right? You have full control, you have full customization. So it allows you to really build exactly what you're looking to build. It allows you to customize it to the 100%. It allows you to control the data, the privacy, the features. Everything is under your control. But on the other hand, of course, it requires technical expertise. It requires time, and it requires a lot of money. I'm talking generically because It depends if you're building a small AI model or if you're training an LLM, right? Right now, LLMs are the buzzword. So people want to train their own LLM, their own ChatGPT, etc. So of course it's doable, but again, these are the disadvantages of time, resources, and money. There's a lot of effort put there. On the other hand, using something off the shelf, calling an API, can get you quick results, right? You don't have to worry about technical understanding of how it works and technical knowledge. You also don't have to worry about maintaining your solution because you just rely on the company and they're always going to give you improvement and updates over time. Uh, on the disadvantages side, basically you don't have full control over it. You don't have full customization, right? And you're always dependent on a third party. So your solution is kind of reliant on something else. So that being said, this is how I usually advise companies. So I explain the pros and cons, which might be obvious, but it's good to align on them. And then I say, okay, let's look at your use case. What exactly do you want to get out of this? What's your long-term plan? Are you building something? Is it like a small feature in a huge product that you have, or it's going to be an essential part of your product? If it's something that's like a small feature, you can get away from calling an API, and that's it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, why do that? If it's an essential part of your product, then of course it does make sense for you to own that technology. Maybe on the short term, you can outsource it, get a heads up, call an API, leverage something that's already out there, just to give you some time to build an MVP and get some clients, get some money, raise some funds, etc. Because it's costly to actually build it yourself. But definitely on the long run, you should own that technology. But again, this is for specific cases of companies that are building things that are essential. Like the heart of their product is that feature, is the AI, not just like a small feature that you can easily outsource to someone else. So there's a lot of considerations. There's a lot of things to consider, but basically that's how I would approach it.
But I want to give my input about one thing. If, let's say, I'm using OpenAI's API, I'm contacting a closed source AI. And if, let's say, for an example, the feature is centric around AI in my software, and I want to move towards in my in-house, it becomes very difficult for me to use a closed AI into building it on my own versus using, let's say, something open source like Mistral, and I need to retrain it the way that it used to behave when I used a closed AI. What's your thoughts on this?
So I'm not sure I understood the question exactly. So you're saying the difference between using an open source and a closed source API or AI?
So when I'm using, let's say, for an example, OpenAI's GPT, it's a closed AI. It's not open source. I don't own the code, so I can host it on my own server and run it. It might be performing, let's say, 1, 2, 3. If I want to, let's say, host my own AI because the AI is a centric part of my product, and I want to host, let's say, something like Mistral, as an example. It can be any kind of LLM, and I want to run it on my server, and am expecting it to behave similarly to how the ChatGPT version was giving me 1, 2, 3 because it was performing as expected. But when moving from closed AI to open AI, it becomes a little bit difficult. I might not get the
True.
results that I might expect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because especially right now, like in terms of performance, GPT-4 is the best performing LLM out there, right? And the next best one is probably Claude 3 or Gemini. All of these are closed source LLMs. So when you look at the open source LLMs, you have Llama 2, which is the best one. You have Mistral, and you have plenty of other LLMs as well. But of course, the gap between the best open source LLM and the best closed source LLM is it's huge. We're hoping that based on what we've seen as rumors, that Llama 3, the third iteration of the Llama LLM, which should be released in July, they are saying that it should be comparable to GPT-4. So we should have the same performance as GPT-4. But that's a great point. Like you definitely on the performance side, you'll take a hit. And of course, running it internally is not that simple. You need the infrastructure, you need the GPU. It's gonna cost you some money, but yeah, I mean, it does make sense if you're owning the technology eventually.
So I'm going to move to a different question, which is the increasing integration of AI into daily operations. Data privacy concerns are more prominent than ever. How do you balance the need of large data set in AI with the imperative protective protection of individual privacy? So I'll give an example on this, which is the EU regulation. They have strict standards on what kind of information I can harvest from people, what kind of information I can take from people. I should take their permission to take certain things, but also the protection of the data itself.
Yeah, exactly. This is very important because AI doesn't exist without data. So data is essential to the whole AI field. And companies gathering a lot of data to train AI systems should take this very seriously, the protection, the privacy, and the protection of their data. So it's always, I mean, depends on the company, but there should always be clear standards of how you should control the data, specifically when it comes to industries that are regulated, like finance or healthcare, or these industries where information is very sensitive and it's very personal. So if you're storing information about users, there's a lot of things you can do, like for example, anonymizing the data, where you remove the personally identifiable information, the PII, from the data itself. You remove the first name, the last name, their age, their phone number, their email addresses, so you don't link them to the whole data set. That way, if part of the data was leaked, at least if not, it doesn't contain some PII information. So it helps kind of protect the user's privacy. But it's always a struggle, right? Like even OpenAI, they've been hacked a couple of times, and we've had a lot of issues with data privacy. So it's always going to be a concern. And I always tell people, specifically for ChatGPT, that don't assume that your data is protected, right? Don't share personal information with ChatGPT if you're not comfortable sharing it online or sharing it on social media in a way, because assume that's gonna somehow be leaked, and then deal with that. And this is important because a lot of employees are using, let's say, IT related information for their company on ChatGPT. They upload, let's say, a piece of code, and they ask for help, or they share some financials, or they share like information related to the company with ChatGPT to get some help on that. Not realizing that actually this is like that compromising the company's data. In fact, this is why Samsung banned ChatGPT internally, because on a few different occasions, their employees were sharing sensitive information with ChatGPT. So again, go back to the idea that the data is not that well protected. So you have to also, we as consumers have to understand our responsibility and making sure that we don't share anything, and we kind of protect as much as possible our data from the platforms.
So I'm going to move to a different question, which is bias in AI is a significant concern that can impact the fairness and effectiveness of an AI solution. What approaches do you recommend to identify and mitigate bias in AI models?
Yeah, that's definitely an important part. I mean, we've seen recently, I'm sure you've seen the Gemini problems with generating these images. And this is, by the way, it was due to Google's effort into not biasing the model, and that turned out to be even more biased than they imagined. So, it can be a simple problem, but it can also be a complicated problem. So, simply speaking, we feed data to the AI to train the AI. So if data is biased, the AI will be biased, but that's like to oversimplify things. Now, when we are training these systems, we have to make sure that the data is not biased, but also sometimes we inherently put in some bias without even understanding it or realizing it, right? Because notice how each company that is building their own AI, they influence that AI based on the company's moral and ideas. So it's like you're raising your kid. So each person has their own views of the world, and somehow you cannot put that or those views on your kids. Certain companies that are building AI, they are somehow um, adding their own views of the world on this AI. Like for example, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it, to make a joke about Donald Trump, it's gonna happily make that joke. But if you ask it to make a joke about Joe Biden, for example, he's gonna say political blah blah blah. I don't do, so he's gonna figure out a way to say I cannot do that. or there's a lot of these examples, right? So it shows you that the company building that AI put in their views, their standards, their biases or non-biases at the same time. So uh, there's no specific like solution for that, except that developers and companies building these solutions should be extra careful about not biasing or even pushing it too much, like too much, trying too much not to bias it and to end up actually biasing it, like what happened with Google. So you have to be careful to properly test your AI against different user groups, segments, ages, ethnicity, races, whatever. Make sure that actually your users will not feel discriminated when they use your system.
But the problem is, if I try to remove the biasy part, would I fear that my AI model will be overfitted or underfitted? So if, let's say, I remove these biases, and then the data that I have becomes less significant, so that the model might underperform, or it might learn on these data and then it just fixate on those data and it gives you answers based on those.
Um, I mean, you don't have to remove the bias by removing the examples from your data set, but maybe you can uh, provide equal examples. Like if I'm training a facial recognition system, for example, right? I don't have to provide 90% of the data on white faces and 10% of black faces, and then obviously biasing the model against black faces. I need to make sure that I have equal amount of data for both, for example. Um, Again, it's not as there's no simple answer because bias can mean a lot of things, right? Sometimes we bias without actually meaning to bias. Like for example, if you go to ChatGPT and ask it to write a story about a doctor and a nurse, most likely the doctor will be male and the nurse should be female, right? It's not like ChatGPT was trained to say doctor is a male and nurses are females, but in most cases on the internet, the data, the stories, the text you have contain information about doctors being male and nurses being female. Of course, there are some exceptions or some ways where some examples where doctors are females and nurses were male, but the majority were that way, so that's what it learned. So I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that's what the data says. So either we have to change the data, which is that's the reality, that's the data out there, or we have to kind of be flexible a bit on few things and figure out what is actually understandable and what is something that has to be, fixed and corrected in the results of these LLMs.
I'm going to move to a different question, which is AI has an intense potential to address social challenges. Can you share examples from your work where AI has applied for social good, let's say in Lebanon or the MENA region?
That's a great question. I always like to see these examples of AI being applied for something that's useful. There's a project that we were involved in actually. It's called I'm not gonna say the name, but basically a we hooked up the APIs of Google has they have a platform called the Earth. So that's the name. So it's Google Earth Monitor or something like that. So they monitor the globe for deforestation and fires and things that are affecting the climate, and they have some trigger news or events. So whenever a piece of land that gets deforested or we lose some trees or something, it triggers a certain event, and it happens globally, right? So we hooked up these API events to an LLM that's actually takes this information, writes like a news alert about it, and pushes that information to different news sources to share that. So it's like an AI reporter that's monitoring deforestation and just sharing this information with different PR companies and news sources to actually promote that. So what's cool about it is that it's like having literally someone constantly monitoring the globe and saying, okay, this thing happened in Italy, we lost, 5 kilometers square of forest due to this fire, or we lost this to the flooding, or we lost this or that, whatever. And it just helps bring some highlight and some awareness into these problems. So, so I found this is a very cool way of using that technology. And yeah, so that's the project.
As an AI expert and educator, what emerging trends in AI do you believe will have the most significant impact on businesses and societies in the upcoming years?
I think generative AI is already, we're seeing already the impact that it's having on businesses and individuals because it's, again, it's helping create these tools that are being used by everyone. So, regardless of which domain you are in right now, there's probably a tool that's going to be helping you do your job better. For example, in the podcast, since you have a podcast, I'm sure you know there's a lot of tools that can help you edit the podcast, extract some clips to share on social media, transcribe this, change that, create the graphics, fix the audio sound. A lot of the things that you used to do manually, you now do them with a tool that automates most of these things. And this is due to generative AI and to advancement in these AI models. And the same thing applies to, again, any industry, any job, any role, etc. So I think this is the most the biggest thing that's going to be impacting businesses in the near future, uh, because just like software, right? So I don't think there's a company or there's a job role right now that does not use software one way or another, whether it's a website, a tool, a mobile app, etc. So everyone uses software to do their job, and it's now become part of the job. So imagine that this software is now becoming smarter, way better than the traditional software, and it's gonna help you remove few things from your task list and do it for you. So just like one step in the iteration of the evolution of these tools. Um, so yeah, this is the biggest thing that's gonna change companies and businesses.
My expectation of changing is that, let's say, certain movies will not be, let's say, hosted by actors, but actually by AI. We reached a position that everything that we see online is no longer real, like a dystopian kind of thing. This is my expectation of the upcoming years.
This is starting to happen. The second part, it's already out there. So I can assure you, if you open any social media platform, a lot of the content out there is not actually, I'm not gonna say it's fake content, but it's not actually real content. Like for example, a lot of the posts are written by ChatGPT. Okay, fine, we gave it the ideas, but I'm starting to notice like I developed this ability to recognize if this text was written by ChatGPT or not. And I didn't partially train myself to recognize this. But because I've read it so many times, eventually you can see that this is obviously copy pasted from ChatGPT, right? And it's crazy how much people are using ChatGPT. Like yesterday, I came across a research paper. Someone actually, it was a reviewed and published research paper where in the introduction, literally the first part, the first sentence starts with, certainly, here's an introduction for your paper, semicolon, and then it wrote that. So people actually copied the certainly, here's a good way to start your paper, or whatever it says, into their paper. And this was reviewed and published. So yeah, so a lot of the things already out there right now on the internet is being used, generated by AI, and there's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of fake images, fake videos, audio. I'm sure you know about these scamming attempts where, especially in the US, like they're using people's voices to clone their voice and to scam their parents into sending them money or, doing different things. Especially in politics as well, right now in the US politics, they're using, like yesterday I saw this, plenty of people are using, creating pictures of Trump with black people, having fun or enjoying themselves and trying to, uh, like, what do you say, like push it on black voters to kind of convey them to, Trump is cool, vote for Trump, something like that. And also it's happening on the other side as well. So it's just not just one side. But the point is, a lot of the content out there on the internet is fake or AI generated, and it's gonna get more and more, into that direction in the future.
You spoke about the example of people in academic institution using AI, and you start to discover these kind of things. But there's one thing that you are also a lecturer in an academic institution, which is would you think that academia is preparing students to face real world problems, or you see there's a huge lack that's not being addressed?
I mean, Mostly, it's not, right? Even though there are a lot of universities that have started implementing, practical things and AI trainings or courses, but in general, the market is moving really, really fast, and usually takes some time for academic institutions to update their curriculums and to get the accreditation and to do the whole process. And unfortunately, the market is moving way faster than the pace at which they are moving. So, um, so I think, yeah, I think we need a radical change in the way we teach and the courses that we teach, not just the content, but even the way we teach them, right? So COVID showed us that, remote teaching, online teaching, although it's not the best version out there, but still it works, right? There are ways that you can play around that to actually deliver courses and education through that medium. Um, so I think there's a lot of things that has to also be implemented, and the biggest elephant in the room here is the change that is happening. So unfortunately, we don't know what the future looks like, and this is like for the first time I think in history maybe things are moving really fast that you cannot even predict how it's going to be in the next 5 years. Like 100 years ago, you can say to your kids, you can grow up and become X, Y, Z, because most likely by the time you reach 18, things will not change that much. Right now, I have a kid who's 2 years old. I don't even know what the world will look like once he reaches, university. I can't even tell him, go into this or go into that. We used to say, okay, go into coding because coding and software is not going to go away. But we've seen now that there's more and more AI that's being, that's writing code, that's automating software development tasks. I don't believe AI is going to replace fully software engineers, but still, it's we don't know how it's going to change the job itself. So, so yeah, like we're moving really fast. Things are changing really rapidly in a way that we don't actually know what's going to happen. So, the best way that universities can prepare students is actually to like focus on skills that are not actually clear, like soft skills, creativity, problem solving, collaboration, these kind of skills where whatever happens, you know that there's always going to be a need for having these things, right? The domain specific knowledge will change fast, but these skills are not going to go useless. So that's yeah, that's how I see it.
I'm going to move to a different question, which is what has been the most rewarding aspect of your work and what is something you are proud of?
I mean, we're very proud of the impact that we're doing. So the beautiful thing about our work is that we are really changing lives. And I'm not saying that to be, poetic or to overemphasize things. We feel the change, right? We help people get into jobs. We help people transition careers. I receive so many messages from people saying that, thank you so much. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, or I went into this field and I was really happy. I took your courses. Now I'm working as a data scientist or a machine learning engineer at that company. And, especially like for us, a lot of our students are not actually engineers, like software engineers or computer science students. They're actually coming from different engineering fields. So we have the chemical engineer, agricultural engineer, mechanical engineer, you name it, like any type of engineer that is not a software engineer has taken our course and now finds themselves in the AI field working at cutting edge things. So this impact, this way of actually having people transition to the new jobs of the future and acquire those skills is what gives us the motivation, and we feel really very proud and excited to have that impact on people. And we see across, like we started doing those technical trainings, but now we also have a lot of a wide range of programs. So we have a program for kids where we introduce concepts of AI to kids between 7 and 15 years old. And of course, there you can see a different type of impact. You can see, how you're opening up their eyes into a world that maybe they've interacted with, but they haven't actually understood how it works, right? So these kids are using iPads and mobile phones and whatever, but they don't know that they're collecting this data about them. They don't know how things work, on the back end. So when you show them and you explain these things, and you see that they're now actually more equipped to handle, living in this world, it gives you some form of, satisfaction as well. Um, when we also help companies. So like exactly all the way through the spectrum, we have impact that we're doing, and it's very, very, it's very satisfying for us to see that impact.
I'm going to move to a different question, which is, can you tell me about a time that you did something that worked out, but not for the reason that you thought it would work, and something that you thought it was a good idea, but it didn't work out at all?
That's a good question. I mean, so I can tell you that we have a lot of things that we tried to do that ended up not working. So yeah, so like initially when we first started Zaka, we wanted to do a lot of things. We wanted to do everything actually. So we went into delivering trainings and building projects and delivering consultancy and doing kind of everything, which is not the best way to approach kicking off a new startup. Bootstrapping it as well. So we ended up like after a couple of years realizing that we're actually doing too many things, but not doing one that really well, right? So we're still like spreading ourselves too thin and trying to push multiple things at once, and it wasn't really working. So just because we were excited and we were trying to do a lot of things, it's not the right way to approach it. So we stopped doing consultancy more or less and development, and we just focus on education and training and upskilling. And right now we have grown a lot in that sense. So ever since we did that, we've added way more programs. We've reached out to more people, we graduated more people than ever. We are now present, are delivering courses in multiple countries in the region. So we've kind of grown, I would say, exponentially after we've kind of stopped doing everything and just focus on that. So that's one of the main lessons that I've learned when you're launching a new startup, to really have that focus. And because a startup is really, it's a flexible thing, right? A startup can be anything. It's a company at the start, but it can take it in that direction or in this direction. It doesn't really have a clear clear definition. That's why, especially at the beginning, startups spread it a lot. So it can really be anything. And when you get that excited, you can say, okay, I want it to be everything, not just anything, but all of things at once. And that's a very bad decision. So learn how to focus is something that we've learned. Another unexpected lessons learned as well is after ChatGPT was released, right? It took us like 5 months to launch our masterclass, because mainly I wasn't really sure that it would make sense for us to deliver a training about a tool. Like I thought, why would people need me to tell them how to use a tool? Like anyone can just use that tool. But actually, I was very, very wrong, because after we developed the training and started delivering it to many people, and I started engaging with them, I realized that most people don't actually know how to use the tool, even though it's as simple as you can think about it. But because I understand how it works, I know how to maximize my output from it. But people who have no idea what AI is, people who think that AI is Terminator, and these kind of people, they hear of ChatGPT, they just go on the App Store, they write ChatGPT, download the first app they get. Most likely, it's not actually ChatGPT; it's some other companies just wrapping around the APIs or something. So they started paying for things that they don't understand. They started using things that are not safe. Or even if they use the actual ChatGPT tool, they don't know how to use it. Like people started telling me, yeah, I use it like Google. Instead of Google, I go to ChatGPT and ask it questions, which is the worst way to use ChatGPT. It's not a Google, it's not a search engine. It's not a way to retrieve information from the internet, right? ChatGPT is an LLM, or it's based on an LLM, and LLMs are meant to create or to generate text. So if you're using it for research, obviously it's going to give you wrong information. So it's things like that, it's small things that I realize that actually, yes, we need to be providing these trainings and guiding people into how to properly use that tool. Because again, the tools are moving rapidly, the field is moving really fast. People who don't understand how technology works, they have to catch up. But if they catch up in the wrong way, they end up using wrong tools and getting the wrong view of AI, getting the wrong answers and saying, okay, AI is not accurate or whatever. Or sometimes getting too scared and not using it at all because they are afraid of change. So yeah, that was a very important lessons we've learned, is that it is important for us to develop trainings on how to properly use these tools.
I remember when I first started using ChatGPT, and I saw a video about prompt engineering, which is how to send a prompt to ChatGPT. And I thought at first, it's like, this is very ridiculous. Why would I need to learn about how I'm going to ask a machine? Like, I can come up and ask it, let's say, for an example, write for me a draft to write about, let's say, scaling an AI application on AWS. ChatGPT will come up and it will do it for you, but it will do it in the most, let's say, general way possible. And then I came up and I wanted to give it a test. And then I said, assume yourself you are an AI engineer. How would you write a blog post about deploying an AI application in details where I need to deploy X product on AWS? And it gave me a much more detailed answer than just asking it very something that's normal.
Yep. Yep, exactly. I had the same reaction when I heard of prompt engineering, especially when I saw these job positions, like companies were offering huge amounts of money for people to just to be a prompt engineer. I actually started laughing. But yeah, I mean, it works, right? These LLMs, you can ask them anything and they answer. But if you ask a generic question, you're going to get a generic answer. If you fine tune your question to actually be exactly detailed, providing context, providing examples, providing different things, then of course the answer is going to be exactly to what you want to have. So it's important to have this prompt engineering concept. But in my opinion, and based on other people's opinion as well, I don't think that's going to last a lot in the future. I think in the very, very near future, this idea or concept of prompt engineering will not be required because these AI systems are getting smarter and better. So they're getting better at understanding what you mean, what you're looking for. And also, the more they are integrated into our lives, the more they're going to know exactly what you mean. Like, for example, if you go to ChatGPT and say, write me an email to Chris to ask him to be on my podcast. It's going to, if you go right now and ask it this, it's going to say, okay, hi, Chris. Da, da, da. It's going to give you a generic email about someone asking Chris to be on their podcast. But in the future, if it knows, what your podcast is, what's the name of the podcast, it knows who Chris is because it has access to your contact information. It's going to know directly that the email it's going to send will be more accurate. It's going to say, hey, Chris, as the founder of Zaka, blah, 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 I want to have you on my podcast that's called blah, 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 So it's going to provide more accurate, correct, let's say, email that's going to say, it's going to feel for me that you actually wrote it, right? So it's these two things, like being more integrated into our lives and having smarter capabilities will, in my opinion, eliminate the need to have better prompt engineering. You're just going to say, write an email to Chris, and it's going to do the rest of the things. So it's going to automatically understand and give you accurate results.
But didn't ChatGPT face an issue when we start asking it a very normal question that it learned our normal question and start giving bad answers? Do you remember when people start saying it's dumb, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
dumb? It's just it got overtrained in a different way.
So there's no clear answer for that. After some time, people started feeling that GPT-4 or ChatGPT is becoming dumb. So you have to know two things, a couple of things. Actually, OpenAI, they are updating ChatGPT every couple of weeks or every month or whatever. So they take the chat history of people using ChatGPT and they use it to retrain ChatGPT with that. So this can mean that, yeah, maybe based on that data, we ended up with a version that is not actually as smart as the initial version. But there's ups and downs, right? Because when you're training a model, there's a lot of parameters, there's a lot of metrics that you can track. So yeah, it might have been maybe slightly dumber in areas, but better in different areas because they're also increasing its security, right? I don't know if you've seen how people jailbreak ChatGPT and push it to do things it's not supposed to do. But this is super important for OpenAI. So they care about having the updated version be more secure, be less prone to these vulnerable attacks and things like that. So maybe by focusing on that, on these issues, they kind of diverted the idea or the smartness or the logic of ChatGPT. But based on what they mentioned, based on what, let's say, I think Sam Altman also mentioned, there's another factor that's at play here, which is people who started using ChatGPT initially with zero expectations. They were impressed with the results, right? So this is the same factor everyone uses. The first time you use it, you're like, wow, I can't believe it's this smart. Use it for a week, it starts to slow down a bit, like the impressiveness that you have, the answers that gives you are still the same, but your perception of these answers immediately have high expectations because people adapt. And so if you've been using it for like months, eventually you're gonna feel like, okay, it's the same old thing. It's not impressing me anymore. It's not because it uses its logic and its performance, but it's because people have gotten used to the level or the quality of the answer. So we adapt, right? We normalize. It becomes something normal, and we're not impressed anymore. So it's all about managing expectations for users, and that's why this is also another way of looking at things. Personally, I haven't tried ChatGPT become any dumber, but because I've always assumed that it's dumb in a way, right? I've never been. I mean, I'm impressed with the results, but I also understand how it works. So I'm not looking at it as what is this magic thing happening, right? I see the reasoning why it's answering like this. I understand the logic behind that's happening, the behind the scene, yeah. So for me, I've always felt like it might appear smart, but I knew it's not that smart. So that's why I maybe haven't felt that it's becoming dumber.
So I'm going to move to a different question, which is, what is something that everyone takes for granted, or in a different way that you think it is inaccurate? So you've talked about AI, where people might think that it is the Terminator. They might not want to get into it or any of that. But what is something else that people take for granted as well?
Take for granted. So you're not talking about a misconception. You're saying something that people take for granted.
Yes.
I mean, the power of these systems, like ChatGPT, for example, since you're talking about that, or maybe Midjourney or these text-to-image models, uh, it really takes a lot of effort to create an image or to create a text, right? To train these models. But right now, especially kids who are growing up with these technologies, they're not going to be able to understand exactly how cool it is to ask a question for ChatGPT and get this answer, right? Like I forgot his first name, the uh, Andreessen, the guy from
Andreessen
Andreessen
Horowitz.
Horowitz. Yeah, but
Mark
Andreessen,
Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen, exactly, Mark. So Mark Andreessen was on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think like a few months ago. I forgot exactly the date, but he was giving you this example. So his son is like 12 years old or something like that, and he was showing him ChatGPT. He was like, here, look at this ChatGPT. Ask it any question, it's gonna answer you. So he asked it some questions. ChatGPT answered him, and he was like, Mark was like, "Isn't this exciting? Isn't this interesting?" And his kid was like, "You mean I asked a chatbot a question and it answers me? And I mean, its job is to answer me on my questions. So what's the impressive part about that, right?" But because his kid grew up in the age of the internet and the age of ChatGPT, he did not see, for example, what we went through, like in our childhood, with the starting using the computers and then how things improved. He woke up to a world where AI exists and it's that powerful. So it seems, yeah, I mean, a computer is meant to answer me questions. It's meant to behave like, the way I want it to behave. So for us, I think this is the main thing that people take for granted. It's the how how amazing and how difficult it is to actually what we've reached. And this is something that also it's kind of surprising in the AI world because researchers, like if you ask people 10 years ago, what would be the first thing to be automated by AI, they would say most likely it's going to be blue collar jobs, right? So things that like physical things, physical labor. And if you ask them, when will AI replace creative work, authors, poets, software engineers, these white collar jobs, it's going to say not in the near future. But what we've realized is that AI came for these jobs first. Like we it's now automated. Like we've automated creative jobs, white collar jobs, and not blue collar jobs. So that's kind of also something surprising that we've come across.
Yeah, I want to continue on the thing that you talked about, the anticipation. So when we were kids, we used to wait in front of a big PC, and if it start making the fans kicking up like an Apache helicopter, you know it's processing something, and when it stops, that means it's done. Uh, I had the same kind of thing when I start using ChatGPT. When I ask a question and it answered me quickly. Usually, when I want to ask a question, I have to search a couple of things. I need to find, let's say, on Google. this value, if this link leads to the right information, I need to read it, and now it's all within my fingertips.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, what I enjoy with ChatGPT, and this is the paid version. So if you're using the free version, of course, do not use it for research because it's not looking up information from the internet. It's remembering things from its knowledge base and it's trying to reproduce that knowledge. And that's why it can hallucinate or produce wrong information. But if you have the paid version, which has the access to the internet, this is amazing for research because if you were to do a research, you would go to, let's say, Google or Bing or whatever search engine. You would put in your query. It's going to show you some websites. You can go on each of them, read some stuff, kind of summarize, and then do the whole summary yourself. So you can automate that very quickly with ChatGPT. You can ask it a question, and then it's going to go look up multiple websites and get back to you with a summary of the things that you need to know about this topic or about your question. So it's really amazing and interesting how it does that. But of course, always make sure you're double checking the information just in case it tried to hallucinate something or just gave you some information that does not really exist.
So I always end the podcast with a mental health question. Have you ever faced burnout or imposter syndrome? And if you did, what would you do to resolve towards these issues?
I mean, imposter syndrome is something that I think everyone faces. Definitely, I did that as well. Mainly because, when I started in the fields, again, no one actually taught me AI. I didn't take a university course or a major in AI, and no one actually gave me these things. I learned those stuff by myself by trying to build something and reading online and diving into this field. And then I learned it even more when I started delivering trainings and workshops at Beirut AI, and then even more through Zaka, etc. But I've always had this feeling that I'm not like, who am I to deliver trainings or talk to people about AI? Like I'm not. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a proper education. I don't have the typical things that society tells you that you need those to actually you know I don't know become credible to share something. And I struggled a lot with this at the beginning. But the way I overcome is just by pushing myself more, applying things, doing things with it, and this gave me confidence, right? So I'm not someone who just read an article about AI and I'm coming and I'm you know preaching about AI. I'm someone who has actually built things, done that, tried this, delivered this, went deep into a certain topic, worked with it a lot, and over time, when you see, build, yeah, do more things with it, you build experience and you build confidence, and eventually it feels less and less like an imposter and more like, yeah, I think I know my stuff and I think I understand what I'm talking about, and gives you that confidence. But I think it's not a bad thing to have that imposter syndrome. I think if people are feeling this, it means that they're actually on the right track, because there's a lot of people who you know fake it till they make it, but they're purely faking it, right? They're not actually trying to make it, so they're just talking stuff that to hype things up. And those people, I don't think they feel the imposter syndrome. They're just faking things. So if you're feeling it, it means that you're kind of pushing yourself, and it's a good feeling. So take it as a motivation to dive more, to build more experience, to build more expertise in that field, and then keep on pushing.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you liked it, then feel free to watch our previous episodes and feel free to follow us on social media and rate us on your favorite podcast app of choice.